Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we are going to be taking a first look at Gold Mythic Paul Monroe, who is going to be coming to RTS as an Ultra Token Will character. Now visually we've had Paul Monroes in the past but never been called Paul Monroe. This is of course Jesus, and it is going to be the Telltale Season 3 version of Jesus, which is actually pretty cool. Visually on the right hand side you can see him. We have actually had a Telltale version of Jesus in the past. It was a fast shield, I believe, in the 5-star era, I want to say. So it's actually pretty, cool to see a kind of comeback of Jesus in the Mythic era. On the left hand side we can see his art in a bit more detail. He is on horseback beheading characters, or should I say walkers, as he's riding along. He has got a pretty brutal short sword in his hand, but on the right hand side you can see that there is no attached weapon. So this weapon could come out separately in the future. Like I say, we'll have to wait and see on that, but it's most likely going to happen. This is kind of reminiscent of near the end of the Telltale game, where Jesus kind of rode in on horseback with some hilltop friends to kind of help out the guys when it came to like Javi and so on and so forth. If we check out the stats though, at level 1600 limit break 3, he has got 37,390 attack, 18,695 defense, 37,390 HP. He's going to be a strong character, of course. Going to be a support role, Gold Mythic, and like I said, he will be joining the Telltale Allegiance. So pretty balanced stats, so we'll have to see how his kit pushes him in terms of being on an attack team or a defense team. His adrenaline rush is called The Right Thing. It has a recharge rate of 55 AP, taunt a line of enemies for 2 turns, remove focus from that line of enemies, deal 1000% damage, 250% for each other Telltale Allegiance teammate to the primary target. So this could be really, really heavy. We'll look at the first part, of course. The taunt is obviously decent, and the removal of the focus is obviously a big deal, because then it will stop them from being able to bypass, effectively the taunt counter. So that should be almost a guaranteed taunt at that, case. As long as it lands, it can be resisted, but as long as it lands, it should be a taunt. The next part is interesting. His attack stat isn't super high, but it will deal 1000% damage to an enemy. If he's on a defense team, this will be pretty decent. On an attack team, I don't see this hitting crazy high, but it can be boosted based on the amount of other Telltale characters he has in his team with him. We'll get 250% for each other Telltale Allegiance teammate, boosting up to potentially 2000% damage, which again is pretty decent if it's going to be that kind of damage. On the roadmaps, when it comes to the Telltale roadmaps, he should be able to do this at all times, and that could be very useful because there are characters that have damage reduction, and deal damage obviously bypasses that, because it's damage reduction based on basic attacks. It is only going to hit the primary target, so if you are going to use this, just be careful on which target you do select in a line, because that's the one that is going to hit with the damage. Okay, so here we are on an attack team, and as you can see, we have got the Adrenaline Rush available for Paul Monroe. In my team, I do have one other Telltale character, and it is New Frontier Clem. It doesn't have to be a Season 3 Telltale character, just anyone in the Telltale Allegiance. They're all in the same Allegiance, so that's actually pretty decent. This should hit for 1250% damage. I have given him a 50% attack, 1535 weapon. I would try and get the best weapon you can in his hands, as much attack as possible if you do want to do damage. It's pretty much as simple as that. The Adrenaline Rush will come in, and it will hit for 70k damage in this case. Again, attack buffs will scale this up. It cannot be affected by weapons or damage reduction when it comes to basic attacks. That's the plus side. The downside is his base attack is not crazy high. It's only like 38k. So you definitely need to have him with buffs, surrounded by characters with 1535s. He doesn't have that right now. It's just him, his weapon, and the leader skill. He did get the boost from Clementine on to 250%, and you can see the other character in that line does have taunt, which is obviously very nice, because the taunt is going to mean that he's going to gain AP when he gets attacked. Also, that character cannot take their turn. Now, if we go straight into the upgrades of the Adrenaline Rush, you can see at grade 3 it gets an upgrade where it removes focus from those line of enemies. That's just one copy. This is obviously nice. You didn't see it in the clip before. They didn't have focus, but if they did, it would get removed. At grade 5, we get an upgrade where it gets plus 250% damage for each other Telltale Allegiance teammate. We did have this happen once because we had Clementine in the team. The more Telltale characters the bigger the boost on those roadmaps, it will be for other characters, so it should be effectively a 2,000 damage hit. Then in Limit Break 2, it gets an upgrade where it will taunt a line of enemies for 2 turns, and it'll be the same line of enemies that you are removing the focus from. Remember, the primary target is the only one that is going to be given the damage, so just make sure you target the character you actually want to deal the damage to. I think this isn't too bad. He will require a lot of buffs, more so than most characters who do deal damage, just because his base attack is quite low. But I see this as more of like a little bit of a bonus for an attack team. On a defense team, he doesn't need any attack. This should be pretty good just by itself, even without other Telltale characters, just because 1,000% damage against someone with 20k HP should still do quite a lot of damage for sure. So yeah, not too bad at Adrenaline Rush. Quite a fast one as well at 55 AP, so definitely usable on a defense team. Let's check out his signature move. And as we move over to Paul Monroe's signature move, we can see it is called No Shortcuts. It has got an initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 1 turn, number of uses unlimited. This fighter gets a Guardian Shield, taunt a line of enemies for 1 turn, but plus 1 duration while battling on the offense team. Deal 25% of this fighter's max HP as damage to the primary target. So obviously we'll look through it. The Guardian Shield's okay, I guess. It will stop him from taking a little bit of damage. It's not that big a deal, but it's maybe decent against maybe particular specialists. For instance, if we have like a bide character, he could block the bide damage if he didn't take someone out. Taunting a line of enemies for 1 turn is okay. It goes up to 2 turns if he is on an attack team. So that's actually maybe pushing him more towards an attack team. But even if he's on a defense team, this isn't too bad. Dealing 25% of his max HP as damage to the primary target is not great for an attack team because his HP is not going to be super high. We're looking at like 40k, so it'll do 10k damage. But when he's on a defense team, he'll have all the like mods, weapons, and so on and so forth to buff that HP up. And you could be looking at a character that has like 120k HP, and then you're looking at 30k damage, which is obviously what you kind of would want to do against an attack team character because they don't have much HP. Now you could build him fully for a defense team and use him on attack and just use him as more of a support character because he does obviously have a more support based specialist skill as well. But obviously that part is completely up to you. So here we are on an attack team, and pretty simple. I will just target the bottom line and we will do the signature move. And as you can see, I have taunted the bottom line of characters for 2 turns. We did a little bit of damage to Kenny as well. Like I said, my max HP is not super high in this attack team because I haven't boosted in any way. It's just his base HP pretty much. He seems to have got a boost from somewhere. Maybe his weapon gives him a little bit of a boost, I'm not sure. But he normally has like, I think it was 37.9k for his HP. So he's not going to be doing too much damage on an attack team. This is more about the taunt and the control. And he has pretty good control on his signature move in his rush, both taunting a line of enemies for 2 turns. And if I obviously defend on these characters, you'll see that Paul Monroe will now gain AP freely, and it potentially could be enough for him to get an Adrenaline Rush if he had, you know, a particular weapon to try and guarantee that. Obviously, that part's up to you. A lot of people will probably look at him and try and utilize his specialist skill as well as his taunts and so on and so forth. Now, going over the upgrades on the signature move, you can see at grade 2 he gets an upgrade where he taunts a line of enemies for 1 turn. At grade 4 he gets an upgrade where it's +1 taunt duration while battling on the attack team. And at Limit Break 1 he gets plus 10% max HP damage. So initially it is just 15% of his max HP as damage to the primary target, boosted up to 25% of his max HP as damage to the primary target. Then at Limit Break 3 we get our old friend -1 to starting cooldown. So it goes from a 2nd turn starting cooldown down to a 1st turn starting cooldown. This is reasonably important, but if you did want to just utilize him for a specialist skill, you could see this as not being as important, but you will miss out on stats, of course. So, like I say, it's up to you how you want to try and utilize this, but generally speaking, it's better to have the choice, so you get to choose whether you want to do it on the 1st turn or not, rather than not being able to use it on the 1st turn because you don't have him at Limit Break 3. But the signature move is okay. It's doing pretty decent control, whether he's used on attack or defense. Obviously, it's getting bonuses when he's used on attack here. And I did spot some extra special things happening when those taunted attacks did come in. And we'll probably have to check out what those things are going to be when we move over to the passives. He has got quite a good cooldown on this. I think it was 1 turn. So if he is on an attack team, he should be able to taunt turn 1, Turn 2, you'd wait for it to cool down. And then turn 3, he could either taunt again on his signature move or Adrenaline Rush to taunt. And then the next turn, he could do his signature move again. So he could be taunting a lot of characters, lots of control potential on an attack team. And generally speaking, taunt is good against defense teams just because they can't cheese it like they can stun. And they, attack teams can cheese taunt if you taunt them when you're on a defense team. So it's actually not too bad here. So checking out those passives to see what we were getting the bonuses of there. We have Paul Monroe's mythic abilities, the passive skills, like I say. He is a support character, so he is going to have cunning. When attacking or being attacked, 30% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects. This is good if he's on an attack team or a defense team, because he's taunting characters into his attacking him. He's less likely to proc things like stun on attack, double attack, so on and so forth. So actually pretty useful here. The next one's called Second Chances. When performing the defend action, this fighter and one other Telltale Allegiance teammate get 50% AP. When performing the defend action, 100% chance to taunt a random enemy for 3 turns. This actually makes it so that the choice of doing his signature move or not on the turn 1 is much greater towards doing his specialist skill, because he's not going to miss out too much on the lack of taunt. It will be a random taunt, that's the only other bad thing, but there'll be massive AP gain here for him and his teammates, and that means that he should be able to Adrenaline Rush off of turn 2 based on the AP gain that he'll get from his specialist skill from defending. Because if you didn't know, he has got the specialist skill Energize, where he gives everyone on his team 50% AP when he defends, and the AP comes in on the next turn. So there should be a lot of Adrenaline Rushes available very early on in the fight for Telltale characters. And the next one is called Deus Vult. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. Deus Vult. This was the one that I showed in my preview of the character. 100% normalized resistance, 100% stun resistance, and 100% taunt resistance. This is just good because it makes choosing his combat modes a little bit more straightforward. You've got like Daze Resist, and you've got Confuse Resist and Impair Resist as the ones you should probably prioritize on. Having normalized resistance in there as well is very handy. And then the last one is called A Real Charmer. When being attacked, 100% chance to apply minus 50% defense to the attacker for 2 turns. Okay, this pushes him a little bit more into the attack team, and I did see this proccing from the last clip. We did see 50% defense down on a couple of those characters, and his taunts are so heavy that this is going to happen a lot. Minus 50% defense is brutal, and if you team him with particular characters, this means massive, massive attack buffs, massive damage output, and someone even like the new event character in Axel, he needs defense down on characters to really nuke them heavily with his Adrenaline Rush. So the team up with Paul Monroe actually could be really, really good there. And obviously Paul Monroe on those Telltale roadmaps should be absolutely amazing, just because follow-up damage on characters with that minus 50% defense is going to be massive, regardless of if you're using some of the older characters like Lily and Kenny or some of the newer characters like Javi. So it should be absolutely great. Okay, so here we are on attack, and I figure the best thing to do would just be to defend with Paul Monroe, just to show you how this part works. I'm just going to do some actions on some of the other characters, and you'll see how the AP gain works here. Glenn and Clem have got 0 AP right now, and what should happen is when I defend on Paul Monroe, Clem should gain 50% AP straight away, and then at the beginning of the next turn should gain another 50% AP, and Glenn should only gain 50% because he's part of Telltale. Laura will gain 50% as well, so she should get her rush because she did her signature move. And also Paul Monroe should gain 50% straight away, and then 50% at the start of the next turn. Now, it is worth noting that I will taunt an enemy randomly. That enemy should get minus 50% defense when they attack me, but so any other enemy that attacks me that I haven't taunted, it's just the taunted ones are guaranteed. So I'll do the defend action. You can see that AP comes in on these characters. We do have the taunted attack come in, and then you can see Energize is ready and waiting. And there we go. Lots of AP comes in. Turn 2, all Telltale characters will have their Adrenaline Rush guaranteed. And so will Paul Monroe. The bad side of an Energized character is when you defend, you're not gaining AP, but you're going to gain AP in this scenario. And you can see that Eris does have minus 50% defense on her because she did attack Paul Monroe. And any other character would have that as well. So very fast potential on attack teams to get Adrenaline Rushes up. Whether it be on that Telltale roadmap, where everyone getting 50% the next turn and gaining AP off of their first turn, or just randomly on normal attack teams, even if you don't have other Telltale characters. Now, if we take a look at the upgrades on Paul Monroe's passives, you can see at grade 1, he gets the first half of second chances. When performing the defend action, this fighter and one other Telltale Allegiance teammate get 20% AP. When performing the defend action, 40% chance to taunt a random enemy for 3 turns. Then at grade 2, he gets the first half of cunning. When attacking or being attacked, 15% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects. That's 15% less likely, should I say. And then the next one at grade 3 is going to be second chances 2. When performing the defend action, this fighter and one other Telltale Allegiance teammate get a boosted 30%, now up to 50% of their max AP. When performing the defend action, 60% chance to taunt a random enemy for 3 turns, making it a 100% chance to taunt a random enemy for 3 turns. Moving on to grades 4 and 5. At grade 4, we get the first half of Deuce Vault, 50% normalized resistance, 50% stun resistance, 50% taunt resistance. And at grade 5, we get the first half of A Real Charmer. When being attacked, there's a 50% chance to apply minus 50% defense to the attacker for 2 turns. Then we move on to the limit breaks, and we have got Cunning 2 coming in when attacking or being attacked, and now further 15% less likely to trigger enemy weapon effects and walker effects, making it 30% total. At limit break 2, the second half of Deuce Vault comes in, making it 100% normalized resistance, 100% stun resistance, and 100% taunt resistance. And at limit break 3, we now have a 100% chance to apply minus 50% defense to the attacker for 2 turns when Paul Monroe is attacked, regardless of if he's attacked by someone who's taunted or not. So if he does get dogpiled, that's brutal for that defense team, honestly, and or the attack team. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a good idea to dogpile him, because if he is on a defense team, that's a lot of defense down, and that is extra painful damage coming your way. I think his passes are really nice for a support character. They'll work on the roadmaps, they'll work in general in an attack team. He doesn't even have to be on a Telltale team. There are small bonuses for Telltale. Having one character guarantees that character is the one that gets the AP, so you can manipulate it quite nicely that way. Him and Javi could have a really good team up. Javi hits pretty hard, could be pretty nice there. Obviously, it's up to you how you want to do it. His taunts and control is pretty good alone, but this extra stuff in his passives does kind of add the cherry on top. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is going to be Paul Monroe's specialist skill, and it is Energize. When this fighter performs the defend action, at the start of the next turn, all teammates gain 50% of their max AP, and Energize Specialist can only use it once per turn. Now, I'm not going to show this again because I did show this in the clip for the passives, but I have had a request to see if having 2 Energized characters at the same time gives 100% AP, and I can definitely test that out. But as you saw, Energize is very good. Gaining AP is very nice. It makes you adrenaline rush faster. Generally means you're going to win battles faster, doing the more powerful part of an attack team's character's kit quicker. Generally, the adrenaline rush is where the power is at, and Paul Monroe is going to allow you to do that. But let's see if we can use 2 Energize Specialists in one go. I don't think we will, but it might work. And the other Energize Specialist, of course, is Surgeon Stevens, and all we have to do is just defend on both of these characters. You'll see everyone gets energized the first time. They did have an animation, and it looks like it's brighter. I can't even see the icon now. It looks like there's 2 overlaid, so there's potential here. It would actually be hilarious. I'll do one of these, and then I'll defend on Glenn and Surgeon Stevens. Both these 2 will have 0, and if they get to 100%, that, like I said, it'll be kind of hilarious. Glenn's not going to get attacked. He didn't get attacked. They do actually work together. I don't see this being that useful generally, because if I would have done the signature with Glenn or a basic attack, that generally is going to get me 50%. So I don't think I need to use 2, but maybe I could alternate between the 2, or on the defense team it could just be absolutely horrible to deal with, just random AP popping off non-stop. But simply put, it does work. 2 Energized Specialists in the same team can be used. Now, of course, as we saw at the beginning of the video, there is no attached weapon on Paul Monroe. He is going to have that weapon in his art. We'll have to see what happens there, but it's just going to be a default axe in Paul Monroe's hands. If you do want to use him on an attack, I would say some sort of attack buff on him would be good, just to boost his adrenaline rush up a little bit. It will have to be flat attack. So, for instance, you could use flat attack. You could also have a 1535, and in the other 2 slots, you could go really weird. Like, you could go like HP bonus, and maybe like stun on defense or absolute defense or something like that in the 3rd slot to control the character's that are actually attacking him. Or maybe even something as simple as an AP drain weapon, which is not that great, but it is one of the more accessible options for a strong weapon. The choice is up to you though, but it could be a more specialized weapon that is required to get the best out of Paul Monroe on attack. So this was a little first look at Paul Monroe, a new Ultra Token character coming to RTS. And he, like I said, he is going to be part of the Telltale Allegiance, which is both surprising and kind of cool at the same time. And I think he has got a pretty interesting kit, very support based, but pretty cool. I like how he works. He doesn't necessarily, like I say, have to be used with Telltale characters, but it would be worthwhile having one just because of the way that AP gain works when he does the defend action. But the amount of AP that he's going to be giving out anyway, it should be fine, but he's going to be immense in that Telltale roadmap. He defends off of turn 1. The entire team's going to get 100% AP the next turn. Everyone's going to be sitting at 100% AP as long as they did their signature with turn 1, because they should already be at 35. That's always going to be over 50% as it stands. Adrenaline rushes are going to rain out on turn 2 on those on that Telltale roadmap. The Stellar roadmaps are going to be a lot more straightforward when it comes to having Paul Monroe on the team. And he can Adrenaline rush turn 2, and he can take out characters that do have those, damage reductions, so on and so forth. Characters like Brutus and stuff like that. And like I said, the team up with Javi, who has the same sort of deal damage, could be really, really good indeed. Do tell me your thoughts, though, on Paul Monroe as a new character coming to RTS. I want to thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.